Hey everyone, Rocket here. Today we're going to talk about how I made my favorite sci-fi ship ever, Serenity, out of only this. So I know what you're thinking. How did Rocket make such a beautiful model, beautifully painted, so tiny, and so detailed out of only duct tape? Well, the answer is this isn't duct tape. This is duct tape. This model weighs around 23 pounds, and it was about 27 rolls of duct tape. It took me about 6 months to make because I wasn't really working on anything else at the time. The primary buffer panel does come off. If you look real close, you can see the cockpit on the inside. And because this model is a little bit old, it has some nice wear and tear, and I actually kind of like it. Fits the aesthetic, you know. Moving parts were one of the things I specifically wanted to do when I first made this. So there are definitely some different parts that actually actuate. Engine flaps here, one of them is a bit wonky. And the engines actually were originally going to rotate. However, over time, I had to reinforce it so that they don't anymore, unless you stand them up like this. The cargo bay does open, and actually looking at this now, it's starting to sag a little bit. I might need to do some repairs. And initially, I was actually going to have the pistons that open the door. You can see a remnant there. I didn't end up leaving that in. It made it a little bit weaker than I wanted it to be. When I say weak, I don't actually mean weak. This thing is a beast. It's been more than 7 years and it is holding up just fine. Details and everything. Some of the details I really enjoy are how I included a galley. Oh, what are you doing in there? I'm gonna have to yell at Jason later. You can kind of see there's a table of chairs in there. And in general, I really enjoyed kind of getting into the details on this, into the weeds, so to speak. And again, you can kind of see there are a lot of sections of this that are sort of falling apart. But it adds to the overall aesthetic. It's looking a little bit squished these days, but this is the mule that I created to go inside the cargo bay. It's pretty detailed and I was really proud of it at the time. Still am. It's actually held up quite well. I'm going to show you the time lapse now, which is about 40,000 pictures over about 6 months. And I think it was 30-second intervals, but honestly, it was so long ago that I don't really remember.
So the first thing I worked on was the engines. At the time, I didn't realize this, but I built them well enough to withstand being driven over by a car. Yes, I accidentally drove over one of them with my car. The wing section was extremely strong. It was about an inch to inch and a half thick, with various geometric strengthening and different thicknesses of duct tape rope. Next came the cargo bay. I originally built it to look just like the inside of the real cargo bay from both the movie and the TV show, with the side ribs being nice and small. That worked out in the beginning, and I moved on to the spine. The spine was basically what I built the entire structure around, so I spent some time making sure that was right. I got distracted from the spine and decided I wanted to work on the shuttles. I built the shuttles, and then the mechanism that would allow them to slide in and out. That took me some work and some experimentation. I installed the cowling that the shuttles would slide in and out of here, and then I start to strengthen and reinforce the spine. You can see me referencing images of a 3D model of Serenity to get the shape right. I slowly build up the head and build the cockpit, and then start to work on the outer shell of the head. I move back to the back section of Serenity and build the engine ring that is right before the engine. I build 4 support structures for the main engine shape and skin it over with some thin duct tape rope. I continue to skin over the neck and add some of the larger details and start working on the back of the ship. You can see I build some shaping ribs here and then skin over the roof with 1 layer. Make sure to cut the window, and then I continue to add details sort of haphazardly all over the ship. I add some small details to the engine and I realize I don't like how the shape is maintaining itself, so I rip off that skin and I add 4 more braces to make sure that it stays circular. I reskin the whole engine and cut a hole for the rear stabilizer. I continue on with those details I was working on previously and skin over the sticky side so that I can add the stabilizer. It's at this point I realized that the cargo bay wasn't strong enough to hold the weight of the rest of Serenity, so I had to cut the entire thing off and rebuild it. The support structures went from being about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick to over an inch thick. And then it just comes to detailing. This is all starting to come together. I'm getting excited about it at this point. The engines get installed, and I realized that the main post wasn't quite strong enough, again. So I have to pull that off, reinforce the post, change the hole size, and essentially change the whole mechanism. I have to add some lower supports so that it doesn't droop over time, and it prevents it from being able to rotate. There were some details in here that I wanted to include that ended up being a little bit unrealistic to include, like hydraulics on the engines and hydraulics on the cargo bay doors, but that's okay. The rest of this is just detailing, and I continue to add details and kind of polish different parts of the ship until I'm completely happy with it. And then, the cleaning. I saved every single roll of duct tape that I used, whether it was done or not. And I also saved all of the scrap. There were probably 4 pounds or more of scrap, as you can see. It was a very enlightening experience. And here we go.
Thanks again for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button below. I will see you soon.